Life after prison. Some 90% of inmates in the state of Pennsylvania leave prison and return to society, but oftentimes to a society that looks quite foreign. What are the challenges that they face, and what is the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania doing to help them adjust into their new lives? EDS George Little and Chef Todd Lewis of Pennsylvania's Department of Corrections will be joining us to break down those questions and so much more. That's all coming up right here, right now. I'm Sam Chen, and this is Face the Issues. Good evening and welcome to Face the Issues. I'm your host, Sam Chen. Life after prison. We all know, even if you just watch Law and Order, what happens in the justice system and how it works. But 90% of Pennsylvania's inmates will leave prison and return to life in society, a life that often looks very foreign. Things change, and there are challenges that they face. So how do we prepare them to face those challenges? How do we prepare them to a life after prison? George Little is the Executive Deputy Secretary of Community Corrections and Reentry at Pennsylvania's Department of Corrections, and he joins us this evening. EDS Little, thank you for your time and thank you for being with us.
Sam, thank you for having me and allowing me to represent the Department of Corrections.
It is our pleasure, and we are so grateful to have you with us, and also for the work that you and your colleagues do. I want to ask you from the get-go, just so our viewers know what we're talking about here, could you describe for us what it is that you and your department do day in and day out for the Department of Corrections?
Well, certainly people think of the Department of Correction in terms of our prisons, the state correctional institutions, and that's a huge part of the department. But as of about 2 years ago, Governor Wolf issued an executive order that consolidated into the Department of Correction our parole services. So that includes the field services or parole agents, which I would imagine if you're at all aware of the criminal justice system, you may be somewhat familiar with, but also our institutional parole services that do everything from helping to prepare the inmates for their hopeful eventual release, as well as processing the releases themselves. And so all of this has been brought under one umbrella. And this is crucial because 10 years ago, the Pennsylvania Department of Correction had some 51,000 men and women incarcerated in our prisons. As of roughly March of 2020, that number had gone down to about 46,000, so a 5,000 net increase. And these are men and women who have returned to the community. Mm-hmm. And since the advent of COVID, there have been another almost 6,000 individuals who have net been released from our prisons. So it puts a tremendous emphasis on the successful reentry of these individuals back to the community.
Yeah. And I think when we talk about reentry and inmates reentering the community and reentering society, I think a lot of times in the public, the image is, okay, you've done your time and now you just walk back to your previous life. But the reality is it's really not that simple. Things have changed depending on how long they've been in prison. Certainly, depending on what crime they were serving their sentence for, their job availability may be different. What are some of the different challenges that our inmates face as they prepare to reenter society?
The challenges are very broad. Many things that you and I, Sam, may take for granted, these men and women have not been able to take for granted. Something as simple as making the decision as to when to get up, when to go out, how to handle their personal affairs. They've lived in a situation where somebody has told them what to do in each of those instances, and all of a sudden they're faced with the freedom. If you think about how the world has changed, something as simple as the phenomenon of social media. So let's say somebody's been in for 10 or more years, 20 years, let's say. That may be a totally foreign concept. And yet the whole notion of social media, the pervasiveness of mobile technology, if you even think back 10 years ago, I suspect that some of your viewers were carrying flip phones then. There may be a few now, but now virtually everybody has a computer in their pocket.
Right.
And so if you're going to do a job search, for instance, it isn't necessarily all about knocking on doors. It's about knowing how to use that phone. Our reentrants face other challenges. Many of them came in without having finished high school. Many came in with reading well below the sixth grade level, third grade level, in fact, in some cases. And so those are fundamental challenges, particularly as technology and society as a whole has changed, even in just the last few years.
Yeah, and I mean, I imagine again, these are things that we don't normally think about. To your point, you said, 15, 20 years ago, I remember when Facebook came out. Back then, Mark Zuckerberg called it the Facebook. And I remember back, when MySpace was the premier social media platform, and when the big three media outlets were CBS, ABC, and NBC, and you watched the nightly news. And to your point, so much has changed. What does your department do in preparing them to adjust to those changes?
Well, the department has evolved a great deal and continues to try to evolve. Something as basic as the use of kiosks inside the institutions, providing tablets or making them available, and we don't actually provide them for the vast majority of the inmates. There's some that we do. Tailoring our vocational programs. We run a whole educational system inside the department. I think you may be talking to somebody in our culinary area, which is one of our vocational skill areas. And so what we've had to do is shift away, I think, from what had been the traditional emphasis in corrections, which was training inmates in how to support the system, and really training them for the jobs that will be available once they come out. And so that's a significant shift in terms of making the educational programs relevant, building upon success. On the parole side in the field, historically, the emphasis had been on trying to minimize risk. And the easiest way to minimize risk is as soon as somebody messes up, lock them up. When in fact, what we want to do is promote success. And listen, all of us, if you went back 10 years and you said, did we make a single mistake? I venture to say every one of us has made at least one mistake. Not saying we broke the law, just saying we've made mistakes. And so, trying to encourage positive outcomes for those men and women who happen to be on parole supervision. So there's a range of things that we have done, but particular emphasis on training, really preparing folks for skills, connecting with the community, educating potential employers about the benefits of actually hiring reentrants, and then working to keep people in the community, not in a prison, not even in our halfway houses, but actually at home.
Let me ask you about that. I mean, the challenges of job searching, now you apply for a job anywhere and they want to know all the different skills you have. To your point, what you are all doing is making sure they're caught up on the technology, caught up on these different skill sets. They don't have a high school degree to be able to finish that GED. So they have the qualifications. The other question we're always asked is about our work history. I mean, how do inmates prepare to get a job, and how do they even begin searching for jobs as they get ready to leave?
Well, we have accessed some of the information that's available through the Department of Labor and Industry. We have reentry service offices that we're establishing in all of our institutions. I think we've just about got them all covered. We also have created in a number of the institutions transitional housing units. So these are for men and women who are about to come home. And the whole focus is preparing them for the community to which they'll return. So it's not a general, hey, you might live anywhere in the Commonwealth, but if you're coming back to Allentown area, you're coming to Harrisburg or Philadelphia or wherever, we're really trying to focus around what are the opportunities in that community, what kind of positive supports are there. And in terms of the programs, for instance, we've introduced a CDL training. Now, obviously, if you're an inmate on the inside, you're not going to be able to drive a truck. We tend to frown on inmates operating motor vehicles, but we do have a simulator. And I'll tell you what, you get in that simulator, you or I, and we would think we were driving a big rig with all the stress and strains that would go along with that. So when they come out, they can go to one of the vocational programs here in the state, and they're ready to, with a real quick polish up behind the wheel of an actual vehicle, take the necessary tests. And there's a tremendous, I use that as one example where there's high demand for truck drivers now, and provided that the offense background of the individual doesn't somehow or the conflict with being a truck driver, they'll get hired. We're actually looking at some other innovative programs. Food service has traditionally been one. Now, I think that's one that, given what's happened lately with COVID, may be more challenged in the hospitality area, but we're hopeful. So that's another area where we've been able to have great success. Logistics and warehousing is yet another area. So there are a number of opportunities out there, but it is all about making those connections.
One of the things you mentioned was COVID-19 and the pandemic, and you said it's led to some different challenges. Has that impacted what you are trying to do as far as preparing these inmates for reentry? I guess it has, but how has that impacted the work that you are doing?
Well, it's certainly affected how we operate in general inside. Prisons represent a high-risk environment for any kind of transmittable disease. COVID, because of the way that it's so easily transmitted, presents a major risk. So what we've had to do is really restrict movement, keep individuals in smaller groups and that sort of thing. That works against going to vocational classes. That works against academic classes or even some of our reentry programs. So, for instance, I mentioned the tablets. We're doing more programming via tablets and remote, even on the inside. For the programming for individuals who may be on the outside, by the way, who are on parole, we're also doing more of the programming to support. Because again, individuals who are coming out, they have the whole range of issues. So that might mean mental health services, alcohol and other drug services, even kind of coaching and mentoring as far as maintaining their lives. So the use of technology in that way is certainly one example. Another example, and a good one, we've had our first virtual job fair. We'd begun to have great success in getting employers to come into our institutions and do job fairs before individuals came out and or connecting individuals once they got out. So the virtual job fair concept. And then another one is financial literacy, doing work around that with our State Department of Banking and continue to help individuals. Hey, if you get a job, but you don't handle your money well, you're not going to be able to maintain housing or support your family. So we're making greater use of technology and just trying to deal with the realities of the world in which we're living here in 2020.
Yeah, Edie, one of the things you mentioned you emphasized a few times was the importance of community. And we're not just bringing them back into outside of prison, but into their communities. How important is it that they're able to reintegrate into their community, into the society that they left?
Well, getting reintegrated in the community is really what it's all about. I mean, you mentioned the fact that over 90% of the men and women who are incarcerated at some point are coming home. Home may be the community that they left originally. Home may mean that they want a fresh start somewhere else. But wherever it is about being in the community. It is about being citizens like you or I. So this is work that the department does in partnership. We do it in partnership. I mentioned the Department of Banking, Department of Human Services, just to name two, labor and industry, but also private employers, community groups, grassroots groups, faith-based organizations. And so really the whole community gathering around these men and women as they come back. It's in everybody's interest. It makes for a safer community. It's in everybody's interest because it makes for an economically vibrant community.
And looking to the future, I mean, your department, your team is doing so much right now. As you look to the future, what's your hope about where you can go with this? And what are areas that you are looking at as far as either improvement or expansion for the future?
Well, I think the trend in terms of providing more focused reentry services inside will continue to be a trend in the work that we do, being more intentional about how we transition individuals out. So while we would love for everybody to get a home plan and go to their ultimate destination, many men and women pass through our halfway houses or residential programs. So we want to beef those up so that they better prepare individuals to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. Certainly, the use of technology is going to be crucial going forward. We were already headed there. I mentioned the mobile phones. I think that's a powerful tool to enable individuals. I myself, for instance, use a fitness app. Probably don't do as many of the actual exercises as I should, but it serves to spur me. When I've missed a day, I look down and say, "Gee, you didn't work out," and so I try to make up for it. Well, the same thing if you're working a structured program of reentry. You can look down at your phone, you see that you've got appointments, you see you've got personal goals that you're trying to meet. So we're looking at ways that we can integrate the use of mobile technology as a way to be there in a positive way for these men and women. So I think those are just a few of the opportunities. And listen, we want to talk with the reentrants themselves. We do, and we get their feedback on what will be most helpful for them, and also talk with our community partners on how we can best weave ourselves into the fabric.
Yeah, certainly. Well, it certainly does take a village. And EDS Little, I appreciate your time and also the work that you're doing. Thank you so much. And we look forward to continuing this conversation at a later point.
Absolutely. Thank you again very much for highlighting this very important issue. So often people think of individuals going away to prison only to be forgotten, but we come home and we're back in the community. So again,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Absolutely. Don't go away. When we come back, Chef Todd Lewis will be highlighting one of those many programs that EDS Little just talked with us about. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Face the Issues. And now we're joined by Chef Todd Lewis, who is a part of the Culinary Academy at Pennsylvania's Department of Corrections. Chef Lewis, welcome to Face the Issues. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure. We're so glad that you're here. Just for our viewers, I don't think most people know that there is a Culinary Academy within the Department of Corrections. What is the Academy and what is it that you guys do?
The Training Academy, I work at the Training Academy, which is where all employees of the State Department of Corrections come and train. And in here, I have a program at my own kitchen where I train 9 inmates that are bussed over to me every day from Camp Hill to the academy here in Elizabethtown. And I take them and train them in everything from they learn the Serve Safe program, those blue and white certificates you see in every restaurant. However, somebody is required to be on staff at all times with one of those, so they must get one of those as far as start of the program. And then we will go into learning how to use a knife and the proper cuts, so that when they get out, and they're out in the field, the chef says, "I need a small dice." They know how to cut a small dice, which has a specific size. So they know the specific size. They know how to get that cut. Then we start making sauces and soups, go into sautéing, broiling, and we make everything from scratch. If we have a recipe that calls for mayonnaise, we don't open a jar of Hellmann's. We make the mayonnaise. We crack the eggs and whip it up. And they complain a little bit about their arms getting tired, but we make the mayonnaise. The course culminates. We have the last 2 weeks. We do a restaurant for prospective employers, restaurant people to come in. Fellow Department of Corrections people to come in, and we run a restaurant where a former student is the waiter. We have menus, and then we would serve get the orders would be taken and come back into the kitchen just like any other restaurant. I call it out just like you see on TV, and they prepare it and send it out. And they really like that. They get to feel a little bit of the pressures that they would feel out in the field.
Sounds like a master chef or Hell's Kitchen, like right here in the DOC.
Yeah, they actually tease me. They call me Gordon Ramsay on that day, because they'll see a vein pop out my neck every now and then because I send it back and
Chef, let me ask you this: you are trained and you've been a chef in other restaurants. Why come and do this academy? What's the driving purpose for you?
Well, after running restaurants for in restaurant business, running restaurants for almost 30 years, I decided I wanted to give back a little bit to a career that was treated me so well. And so I wanted to get into teaching, and a friend of mine knew about this program coming up, and I applied and luckily got the position and have enjoyed it ever since.
That's so remarkable, and again, I think a lot of times we don't realize we forget about the humanity of our inmates. That we've all made mistakes, and these are just young men and women who've made mistakes, and we forget about their humanity. I'm curious, you work with them day in and day out of the kitchen. How are they as cooks and chefs? And do they go on from here and land jobs? What kind of success are you looking at?
Well, I have two stories on that. One has to do more with the students themselves. I had one gentleman come in one day after he had just gotten his ServSafe scores, and he came in the next day and was, "Chef, can I talk to you?" And so we came into my office and I sat down, and he broke down, started crying, thanking me because it was the first time in his life his family told him they were proud of him.
Wow.
Wow. But as far as hearing from students, probably once a month I hear from somebody calling to say they went on to culinary school. I just recently had a graduate call me and talk about he had got his own food truck and was actually starting to get a second and third truck now that he was doing so well with it.
Wow. So these are students who go on from your academy, and they go and they open their own places.
Yes.
Have you had the opportunity to go eat any of them?
I have not been to any of them yet. There's a deli guy who opened one about 100 miles from here, and the food truck is down around Philly. So that one I might be able to make soon.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I would be happy to join you in that adventure. Chef, let me ask you this. I mean, there's so much, to your point. You said you wanted to give back, and I just, the story that you just told about that student who said his family for the first time said that they were proud of him. What do you see? I mean, as you work with these inmates and you teach them this, what do you see in them that makes you want to come back year after year and that keeps you going?
Honestly, it's those phone calls I get. They have, when they leave here, I give them my office number and, getting a phone, and to say, just touch base with me, let me know how you're doing. And, they give me a call. These guys who, I'm in their lives for, 3 months or so, and they're, calling me 2, 3 4 years later saying, "Hey, I wanted to thank you. This is where I'm at. I'm down in Atlanta. And I remember that conversation you had with me about being able to do this," which I don't always remember those particular conversations, but they do. So.
Right. Oh, that's remarkable. And Chef, there's so much that you do in the academy, and there's events that we hear about, like the prison food weekend. And various events like that. What opportunities do your young budding chefs have to showcase their work?
Well, the food at the Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia every summer, except for this one, obviously, they do their prison food seminar, and down the one cell block they'll make the food loaf recipes from the different states. Food loaf is punishment food that is no longer used, but they would make these different food loaves that are nutritionally sound. And then there was always one or two former inmates there making their famous Chi-Chis, which is the prison food that they make out of ramen noodles and crackers that they get out of the commissary. And then at the end of the hallway was my students' items. They would make we would make pedophores. And it was they would always joke, this is the palate cleanser at the end of that long walk through that to tasting all that. And the guys really look forward to doing it.
Yeah, is that something that you hope, or are they planning to bring that back after the pandemic?
As far as I know, yes.
Oh, that would be great. And then, Chef, lastly, I just want to ask, is you've done this now for quite a while, and you watch this young group of chefs graduate from your academy, but then move on. I mean, they're leaving prison and they're reintegrating into society. What thoughts do you have as you look back on you moving from the restaurant career to this? What thoughts or what emotions does it evoke in you as you watch them move into their new lives and their success?
Oh, it's great. Like I said, it's great to get those phone calls. And knowing what they do. The final week when we do our buffet, they do a graduation buffet to present what they learned to about anywhere from 50 to 100 people that come to this graduation buffet, and it's recipes and things that they learn, and they take great pride in it. And they're like, I want to remember to do this and there. They're taking notes in the class. Can I use this recipe, chef? And of course, yes, you can use any recipe you get, guys. just let me know when you're doing it well, so I can come and learn something from you.
That is remarkable, Chef. I appreciate that your time today, but that you do that. And this Foodie TV host is eager to visit some of your former students and take a taste myself.
Maybe once we're back up and running, that we can have you.
Oh yeah, that would be an honor, and it would certainly be fun for me, I think. And so, Chef Todd Lewis, thank you again for your time and for all that you do. That is all the time that we have tonight. I want to thank both EDS Little and Chef Lewis, not just for joining me tonight, but for the work that they do day in and day out to help our inmates return to society and to their communities. My name is Sam Chen. On behalf of all of us here at Face the Issues, thank you and good night.